Would you do absolutely anything to keep your partner close? If you think you do, stay with me today in this live because we're going to be talking about codependency. So I'd like to thank everyone that's here. I am Mike and I help people navigate their self-love journey so they can break relationship patterns and manifest a conscious relationship via self-love principles and deep introspective work. So if you can hear me, if you could let me know, that would be great. It certainly helps for you to be able to hear me. That's kind of important and key. So I just want to make sure that everything's plugged in. Just wait for a few people to jump on and get comfortable. And yeah, we'll get rolling. So the purpose of this work, this journey, is to move away and disconnect from our conscious and unconscious survival strategies and step into our soul's divinity. You know, it's about coming home to self, to our power, to our infinite wisdom to support our expansion and self-actualization. So I want to thank you for being here. And I'm so honored to be able to do this work. Again, if you're able to hear me, if you can send me a blue heart or let me know, that would be great. But before we get started, I want to set up some agreements. A policy of no guilt, no shame, and no self-punishment. In this live, or even following my Instagram or my Facebook, you may learn something new about yourself. And this is not an invitation of shooting all over yourself. We will have none of that. So I think that's important before we even get started, because as things come up, you start to think, oh, I should have had a behavior. I shouldn't have done that. I shouldn't have done this. Oh my goodness, this is me. So we want to be able to cultivate this environment of self-compassion. So today's about codependency. And so what is the definition of codependency? You know, Earnie Larson, who is a codependency expert, stated that it is a self-defeating learned behavior or character defects that result in a diminished capacity to initiate or participate in a loving relationship. Yes, that is a mouthful. So why do we become codependent? It does show up in our childhood. Codependency forms in environments where children didn't receive the stable, supportive, and nurturing environment that we so desperately needed growing up. So as a result, we came to believe that we didn't matter, or we were the cause of our family problems. And that these functional environment consisted of parents' behaviors that were typically, they would blame you, shame you, yell at you, or we saw this happening. They were emotionally and physically neglectful, so an absent parent, where we didn't feel safe, where we felt manipulated, secretive, judged, unattentive, and I mean the list goes on, including having unrealistic expectations of their children. So because relationships is where we go to feed and heal our traumas and wounds, it's the most common place where all of this actually manifests, and that's why we see struggles in relationships and why there's such a vast growing trend of breaking relationships, especially with a new dynamic. So how do we see it in relationships? We avoid and control the pain from our early childhood by pulling people closer. We want to force them to want us by potentially saving them. We try to solve other people's problems and make them our own. We try to convince and persuade or push our partner to change. And then we feel frustrated when they actually don't change, and we actually end up pushing the partner away. So there's the kind of that dichotomy there. We ignore our own intuition. It's if they're happy, I'm happy. So there's kind of this enmeshment of boundaries, and there's no differentiation between us and them. So the priority is making them feel good, even at our own expense, which is so unconscious, we just don't see it. And it's a way, again, to have them come closer. So what we do is we develop low self-worth or hatred. And this actually ties into our level of codependency. You know, we don't see them change and we get upset. So what happens is we refuse to live life, not allowing ourselves to live these precious moments, not allow ourselves to feel good about things. So what we do is we prevent intimacy, and we run away from any kind of intimacy and smothering from people. We avoid commitment at times. We stay in destructive relationships. So there's that dichotomy. We push good people away, and we gravitate towards people that are not good for us. And we ignore all the red flags, and we give too much credit to the green ones. And so we also disconnect from our bodies. We disconnect from our intuition because we were never present to ourselves and our needs. So our voice gets quieter. Does any of this sound familiar? I mean, I did this for years. I disconnected from myself, and I shut down. I became resentful. And then, of course, all my relationships eventually broke down, right? And so for many of us, I mean, we just don't have this emotional dexterity. We don't have the tools. You know, we try to look for people outside of us to make us happy. We can't determine the difference between true intimacy and the familiarity of being in a dysfunctional relationship like we've had growing up. So, you know, we are, and codependents, and I'm a recovering codependent, we are the most loving and generous, good-hearted people you will ever know. We just never allowed ourselves to be ourselves, to be able to build relationships around other people and not other people's needs. And so this journey is so important. Another side of getting out of this pattern is building deeper levels of true connectedness to ourselves, being in the present moment. Thank you, I appreciate that. Being in the present moment and connected in intimacy for ourselves first. You know, so how do you lose yourself in relationship? You know, at the core level, that's what we learned to do. Shut down parts of ourselves that didn't feel safe. Parts that were not acknowledged growing up or in other past relationships. We almost went into this survival mode. And so what we need to do is give ourselves compassion for those parts of us that we didn't know. Because the reality is we just don't know what we don't know. And so this journey is about coming home to our authentic selves, is to tap into our divinity, our divine soul connection. And so how do we get from codependency to interdependency? And trust their capacity to honor our needs and our what we are worth. And also keep with relationship agreements. We are now entering and embracing a new paradigm in relationship. You know, the old paradigm didn't work. That's why we had relationship breakdown, right? And so we need to be able to honor our emotional capacity. That's how we start. So if there's a request, if somebody wants you to ask you to do something and you need to have a yes or no, don't answer immediately. We need to be able to source safety and security and validation from within us. So the tool here is the next time someone asks you to do something, to not give a yes or no immediately, but stay present, tune into your intuition, and ask yourself, does this feel safe and secure? Am I stepping on any boundaries? Do I feel uncomfortable? Is it against my values? And so this is a great takeaway tool for us to start to develop that awareness on where we become codependent. We start to self-abandon. This is so important. So this is how kind of the work starts, with just these little small things, and then eventually we graduate. As we go through this journey, we graduate to much larger, more critical things, and where we can start to implement them into our daily life. So I appreciate your time, and I'm just going to go through the comments. I find myself as well more unfinished business. I have inside more. I see more mirror back. Yeah, absolutely, and that's what happens, right? We see so much of ourselves in others. You know, there's always a saying that we are all a reflection of each other. What we see in somebody else is deeply something we don't like about ourselves. I remember having a conversation with someone, and I knew her for 3 or 4 years in my small town, and I never really associated with her because I didn't like her loudness. I didn't like she had this big presence in the room. And so, not necessarily related to today's comment, but I want to acknowledge your comment about mirroring other people. So sometimes we can definitely use that as a tool to be able to tune in to ourselves and see what part of ourselves we can transcend and grow, right? My pendulum has to swing between hyper independence and open vulnerability. Well, I've worked through what I really my own versus what I've taken from others. Yeah, absolutely. It's that fine dance, right? There's that fine dance between, you know, a hyper independency can sometimes be a way for us to shield, to protect. So we have to be very conscious about being super hyper independent, because what happens is that energy actually blocks love. It blocks connection. It blocks intimacy. So there's that fine dance between that hyper independence, which is someone that I've actually dated before, and then there's that open safety vulnerability. And the more we can honor ourselves, the more that we can love ourselves, the moment that we can feel safe in our own body is where we can take a breath and begin to connect to ourselves, and then being able to connect to others in a very healthy environment, in a very healthy way. So I want to leave you with a book recommendation, and I'm going to hold up the book for a moment. So it's Codependent No More by Melody Beattie. How to Stop Controlling Others and Start Caring for Yourself. I read this a while back. It's sold more than 5 million copies. It is actually a really good book. So if you think you have some form of codependency, here it is. I don't know if it's backwards. Yeah. So that's the title anyway. And so it's called Codependent No More. I mean, the content in here is actually really good. It does have to do with codependency with alcoholism, but there's all kinds of wonderful things about. I've highlighted the crap out of it. It's a lot of really good insights. So if you feel like you're on the gray area of codependency, or if you feel and you know that you've been codependent in the past, this is a great resource. Of course, a great resource is keep following me. Always appreciate it. And I thank you very much. Before I go, part of this journey to reconnecting to ourselves is getting to know who we are and what we value. So I've actually created a free workbook, a personal values workbook, which actually is kind of the beginning of the self-love journey. This is what it's all about, reconnecting back to ourselves. And how can we do that if we don't know what we value? So you can actually go to my website at mikefinelli.com/values. The booklet is absolutely free. I spent dozens of hours creating it. I've had dozens and dozens and dozens of my clients take it, and they were mind blown because they thought they valued something, but they in turn actually valued something completely different. And I will note that values do change over time. So it's important to be able to take that workbook over and over. So it's not just a one-time use. You can take it every 6 months and see where your values change. And a quick example, if you don't have children, your value is potentially something else. And when you have children, your values change, your life changes. So again, it's a great workbook. It's absolutely free. Just go to mikefinelli.com/values and download it. I so much appreciate your time. It's such a beautiful, beautiful gift for me to be able to share this work. I'm so grateful for you being here, and I will post this recording. Of course, you can follow me on Facebook if you're a Facebooker as well, and I'll have that as well. So much love. I thank you very much for today, and we will see you probably next week around this time with a new topic. So awesome. Thanks very much, and we'll see you guys soon, and have a great rest of the week. Take it easy.